all the people that were so mean to me growing up and even throughout my career at different times, I'm like, okay, let me show you, like you don't want to work with me now. You're going to want to work for me pretty soon. I mean, I just think the hardest things in life are what reaps the biggest rewards. When you go against the grain for something that you're authentically passionate about, that's when you change the world.
Hey, this is Raina Campbell, your Chief Dream Driver, and welcome to the No Parking Podcast, where through conversations and discussions with creators like yourself, we'll find interesting approaches to help you take your dreams out of park, put them in drive, and ride towards success. Hey, Dream Drivers, welcome to episode 205 of the Dreams and Drive podcast. And today, our guest is Rachel Roff. And Rachel is a melanin expert. She's a licensed medical esthetician, and she's the founder and creator of Urban Skin Solutions Med Spa and Laser Center and Urban Skin RX. And this episode is going to be all about why Rachel didn't let anyone count her out on her dream driving journey. Along our journeys, there are going to be so many people who are asking or questioning why we're doing what we're doing, if we're the right person for the job. But you know what? The one thing I hope that you guys take away from this episode with Rachel is why you have to really instill in yourself a passion and a vision that no one can shake. So on this episode, Rachel's going to open up about the realities of what it means to launch and scale a multimillion-dollar beauty brand that's focused on the needs of melanin-rich people. We're also going to talk about how she got the funds to launch her first med spa, how we can navigate past naysayers, how she balances being a single mom to her daughter Rosie, and why she's always betting on herself and her vision and will do anything to see Urban Skin RX thrive. I had such a blast chatting with Rachel, and I actually met her in person earlier this year. So it's so interesting to see this conversation come full circle on the podcast. Remember, if you love this episode, please, please, please share it. I love it when you guys are screenshotting and sharing to Instagram stories, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you talk to people, wherever your community is, and you feel like this episode is touching, please share it there. You can also follow us on social media. We are at Dreams and Drive across the board on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and you can use the hashtag Dreams and Drive as well. Also, if you'd like to support Dreams and Drive, we also have some ways that you can support. You can go to dreamsanddrive.com/donate to see all the different avenues available. But I would especially love for you guys to be a Patreon supporter. I want to give a shout out to one of our supporters, Dr. Barry Pierre. He is also the host of the Lunch and Learn with Dr. Barry podcast. I love that podcast. Definitely check out the podcast. Thank you so much, Dr. Barry, for being a supporter. As always, you can get show notes for this episode available at dreamsanddrive.com and just click on episode 205. All right, so let's hear from Rachel. And of course, I start this episode out asking her to reflect on her childhood.
Gosh, from the time I was, could remember, I remember being very passionate about any form of injustice, inequality, people being bullied, people being treated wrong, people being homeless, people, so I think from a very young age, I had a large, compassionate heart and was drawn towards the underdog and trying to help them. Mm-hmm. And then, I had two parents that went through a pretty bad divorce and had a single working mom who was in some not so great relationships for a while. And I don't think I got a lot of the attention I needed. And I think she kind of ended up, not really paying attention to my eating habits, probably trying to deal with mommy guilt by taking me for donuts every morning before school because she knew she'd be working late. And I ended up really overweight as a child. And at the age of 2, I also developed a Nevis mole on the side of my mouth, which was very, very dark and brown, and the first thing you would notice about me. So just between being really overweight, having what looked like this, like, 1-inch stain of chocolate on the side of my mouth. And then acne later on. I was really unhappy as a child. I was popular in some ways because I, played sports. I was always very athletic and I was sweet. So the popular girls ended up liking me. But at the same time, I was kind of like the one in the popular group that was the butt of every joke. And it was a painful childhood for me. So that is unfortunately what I think of when I think of like under the age of 18.
So you ended up getting the Nevis mole removed, right?
I got most of it removed. There was always a lot of talk about precancerous cells. And when I was like 13, I was taken to USF Med Center because the issue was they were very concerned with just kind of like chopping it off because then it would distort the way I smiled, the way I spoke, because it was like attached to like my lip area too. And so first, when cosmetic lasers started to advance, 25 years ago, they were like, maybe there's this one ablative laser called a ruby laser. Maybe we can just burn it off. And so in junior high school, I went through 7th grade with a Band-Aid on my mouth because every 6 weeks I was taken to USF Med Center, University of San Francisco, and they would try to burn it off. It would blister, it would scab. I'd wear this Band-Aid, and then slowly it would come back again. And so that didn't work. And then finally in high school, I had some plastic surgery to remove the majority of it, but some of it is still there. It's just, I think through makeup, and it's kind of lightened over the years, I think just from wearing heavier makeup and being so good about sunblock. So it's not as noticeable, but if you met me in person without makeup on, I'm a makeup lover. Although I love skincare, I love makeup too. And you would notice it.
Okay. And you mentioned that like you felt really alone kind of in your adolescent years. How did you work through that? Like as you went into college and started to really learn and become Rachel, who you are today? Like how did you kind of transition out of that?
Well, I think, you get to know my full story, which who knows if we have enough time for today. It left me with a lot of issues that led me to have not very healthy relationships with men. And it's interesting because growing up, although I was blessed, I never really wanted for much. My mom definitely loved me to death. I was never abused in any type of way, went nice family vacations, but, I was just so deeply unhappy. So to be so unhappy with the way you look and feel so alone. And then it led me to really be attracted to the wrong men and be starved for affection. But I really, account so much of my success for actually how much I was bullied. And then my situation with men as well. I think it gave me qualities that led me to be a very driven, disciplined entrepreneur.
Yeah, they say like our life experiences shape us, right? And it's funny because I just posted a quote today on my Instagram that said, hold on, let me give you the exact quote because I think it relates to what you were saying. It says, don't be afraid to start over. This time you're not starting from scratch, you're starting from experience. Right. And a lot of times I think as entrepreneurs, dream drivers, we feel like the things that we go through can scar us, but really they're helping us become better. Right.
Very much so. I mean, it's hard in the moment when a door closes or you think that something you've worked so hard for, you don't get the end result. But I'm a firm believer that, God has a plan for all of us, and He is putting and taking out people at different moments, all for the best, plan for you that He has in mind. But in the moment, it can be painful and hard.
Mm-hmm. So why the decision to go from California to North Carolina?
Chasing a man.
Really? I thought it was college.
That's what I love to say.
Okay.
So my best girlfriend and I, we were dating two guys who were originally from, like, mine was from Myrtle Beach. No, mine was from Hampton and hers was from Myrtle Beach. And they were playing football at a junior college in California. And I was going to USF, and we were like all four best friends dating each other. And I hated USF. It was just a small commuter Jesuit college, and they were going to go back and get scholarships to 4-year schools back closer to home. And my best friend, Jessamine, had some family back there. And we just kind of like, I'm not happy they're moving. My best friend's down to move. Like, let's just try it. And so that's what we did. So it wasn't like I just packed a bag and was like, where can I get a job at? Her and I, we flew into Atlanta. We rented a car from Atlanta to Richmond, Virginia, and had mapped out like 10 colleges to visit that we thought that we both had a chance to get into, because we were still waiting to hear where they would get scholarships. And when we went to UNC Charlotte, it just felt the most appropriate because it was a larger town. And I just couldn't really see myself at a small town like Clemson or Greenville, South Carolina, where East Carolina University was. So it just seemed the most appropriate for wanting a little bit more of a city life.
Okay. That's so funny. But, it's all part of destiny, right? There always is this larger plan that you said earlier. So when did you get were you always interested in skincare? And
oh, yeah.
Okay.
So, in high school, I was always talking about I wanted to own a salon. I wanted to be a hairdresser and an esthetician. Like, I wanted to do makeup. Like, I wanted to just make people look as beautiful as possible. And then as my skin got worse with acne, and I started going to an esthetician at my dermatologist's office in Chico, California, this place called Rejuvenate Medical Spa, I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to open a med spa. And so my parents, who were more traditional professionals, they were lawyers, they were like, okay, this is not what we had in mind for you, but if you graduate college, because I had a really hard time in college, like didn't get good grades, wasn't very focused. They were like, as a graduation present, we will send you to aesthetic school. And 3 days after college was over, I was enrolled in the National Aesthetics Institute of Charlotte and was like, okay, the check is due, Mom. I want my present.
Did you ever, being that you went to college, you graduated from college, do you feel like it was a waste of time and you could have just went to aesthetic school from the beginning?
Yes and no. Okay. I think a lot of money and time was wasted, but I'm so proud of where I'm at. And I feel like all the experiences that I've gone through have led me to this exact moment in time where my brand is finally being noticed and recognized and respected. So like, I can't really, I would say 10 years ago, I would have been like, hell yeah, that was such a waste. Like I went to like 3 colleges, like barely graduated with the 2.0. It was ridiculous. I can't say that I shouldn't have, because I'm doing great.
So what were like the biggest things you were learning in school that you realized, whoa, I could do something with this if I'm able to really just focus?
I really wasn't thinking. I was, at that point in time, I was thinking about getting my first job. And I really thought I wouldn't start my own med spa for probably a good 10 years into my career. I was like 22. I'm thinking maybe at 30, I'll open my own business, and I think I was just trying to learn everything I could. And there's something in school called practicals. And that's where you're doing hands-on treatments and you're not just sitting there, being lectured and studying. And I always hung out with a very diverse group of people. Like, the majority of a lot of my friends were not Caucasian. And so when it came to help them with their skin issues, the school really didn't offer much education about the needs of melanin-rich skin. And then the majority of the students and the teachers, they were all Caucasian. So when we're practicing on each other, issues pertaining to darker skin were not coming up. And so me wanting to be the best that I could be, as well as to help, even my family is very multicultural. We have a lot of different races in my family. I'm like, I want to help the people that I love. And so I quickly realized that there was some inequality in the industry that I was passionate about going on. And it was very surprising to me because Charlotte is practically 50% African American. So I'm like, this isn't making sense. But then at that point, I still was never thinking like, oh, this is going to be my specialty. I'm going to be, a melanin expert. It was just me trying to find the tools to help my friends and family.
That's so interesting. And it's also like inspiring because sometimes when we're on this journey, we can't see the bigger picture. We don't realize like where we're headed. But if we're sticking to it and we're following this passion, then everything will be revealed later on. So how did you end up realizing I could start a business, but at the same time, I could also help a lot of people who need the service?
My first job, one of my best friends, her and her mom were an esthetician at a laser center. One of their longtime clients was a husband and wife chiropractor. And I think they were coming into this med spa, spending all types of money. And because of him being somewhat in the medical field, he was like, you know what, for just a side profitable business, I'm going to open up a med spa and buy a laser hair removal device. And it's just going to make me a bunch of money. Well, he was mistaken. But anyways, we'll get into that later. So I was recommended to them as somebody looking for a job. I think I was hired for like $11 an hour. He bought this $100,000 YAG 1064 nanometer laser.
Wait, is that really how much it costs?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That by chance, it was safe for darker skin. And I don't even think he knew it was one of the lasers that was safe for all skin types. And so he put the business in an office park in the middle of like nowhere. So there was no storefront sign. He had zero advertising budget. And he just thought it was like people were just going to line up. I sat there, not seeing anybody. But, I was able to bring in some friends on a discount. And so I initially treated my own bikini line and saw like I suffered from bad ingrown hairs and they went away. Obviously, when you do laser hair removal and you stop the hair growth, the incidence of any ingrown hairs is abolished. It goes away. So I had a close friend who actually played in the NBA and he had the most severe ingrown hairs on his neck. And I was just like, man, this would be amazing for him. And he was African American. So I brought him in. Luckily, I did an amazing before and after picture and it was just like life changing. So I'm like, gosh, all these men that go to barbershops every week, like this could be a great thing. All these Black men that suffer from ingrown hairs, like this could be game changing. So I made a flyer on my own and like me and one of my best guy friends, because I was a little bit intimidated, I was like, will you please, come with me to all these different barbershops. So I went around to all these barbershops and told them about my laser. I probably went to like 50 barbershops in Charlotte and we started getting a little bit of clients. And so the owner saw that I had some hustle and drive in me and I wasn't just some stupid 23-year-old girl. So he was like, how do you think we should advertise this business? I said, I think there's a real opportunity to go on to like a local R&B radio station and just run a commercial that we have laser hair removal that is safe for darker skin and it works really good for ingrown hair. So he gave me $1,500 budget. I wrote the commercial myself and it went on the air and the phone started to ring.
Wow.
And I'm like, so I started getting some clients and then they had, of course, hyperpigmentation and dark spots because the laser wasn't treating the dark spots. It was just treating the ingrown hairs. So then I was like playing around with like chemical peels and I started literally ordering books, like dermatology, any dermatology book I could find on African-American skin or just melanin-rich skin in general. I was ordering it. There was a really famous derm out of Philadelphia called Susan Taylor. She wrote a book on brown skin. So after about 6 months of this, I went to my family. I was just like, man, this guy really, like, I'm so passionate about this. Like, and he doesn't give a damn. Like, I think that I should start a business specializing in diverse skin. I think I should open a med spa that doesn't exclude my own skin tone, but it's, is known to be very inclusive. And my stepdad wasn't too into it, but my mom, she's always been a ride or die for me. And she was like, look, put together a business plan. and, run it by us. And so I worked on it. I got a software system called Business Plan Pro, and I worked on it. I think I paid my friend who was like just gone through accounting school to help me run some numbers on like budgeting and overhead and this and that. We were able to come up with like best case scenario finances, worst case scenario, like only one person walked through the door once a week versus like 30 people. And I took it to my parents and I convinced them to co-sign on a loan at the bank for me, which I like to be honest about that because a lot of people come to me about like, how do I get funding and this and that. And I believe you can make anything happen. And the SBA is amazing. And there's Kickstarter and there's friends and family, but I don't want to mislead anybody that, I had parents that they didn't give me the money, but they were willing to take on the financial risk for my business because they believed in me.
And that's so important. That's so important that you shared that, because I think it's also reality, because a lot of people don't realize that you were still responsible for paying that loan back, even if things didn't go out right,
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, and my stepdad, because we had somewhat of a complicated relationship and I was the black sheep of the family. I always got in a lot of trouble. Like, he was really negative about me and my business. And I don't think it was nothing to do with like me wanting to specialize in diverse skin. I just think he had seen me go through many ups and downs and was like, is she really going to like make something of herself? And so I was very determined at this point to prove them wrong. And I was dating a guy. Like I said, I had a lot of problems in relationships. And I think I was just wanting to prove to everybody that I could make something of myself. And I did suffer from a lot of motivation growing up. But I think when I finally was able to be in my passion, I became probably one of the biggest workaholics you have ever met your whole life. I was determined to prove to everybody that I wasn't going to fail. And I do think that when we talk about me being bullied as a child, I do think that that's helped me. Like, on one hand, my friends and employees will joke that I can be a little bit immature at times. Like, I gotta like not prove people wrong, but I just like want to show people that that they counted me out. You know what I mean? But at the same time that I guess it's a little bit immature, it has given me a huge drive, that I like all the people that were so mean to me growing up and even throughout my career at different times. I'm like, okay, let me show you, like you don't want to work with me now. You're going to want to work for me pretty soon.
Did your stepfather, now that the brand has seen so much success, like do you still think he has doubt, or like were you able to prove him wrong?
I definitely did, but it took a long time, and he's a very interesting man. Like, he's a man of few words, but I can tell he's proud of me. Mm-hmm. And my mom will tell me the things he says to like his friends and colleagues. And last week we had gotten a new laser at my job. It's a CO2 resurfacing laser. And it's like the most strong laser on the market. It pretty much burns your face off. It's not safe for darker skin. I wanted to try it out because I'm a nut job, and I looked like I had like 3rd-degree burns. And my mom has been dealing with all these phone calls from me, so worried and stressed. And of course she was telling him about it. And so I FaceTimed her this weekend, and he happened to answer the phone. He's like, Rachel, you really need to leave your face alone, because, that's that's what your business is riding on, and your business and da-da-da. And like, he never even cared enough to even like put any stock into don't mess your face up because it could affect your business. It was just like a non-factor. So I'm like, oh yeah, he realizes that there's, that there's a lot that's going on, and he doesn't want me messing up the potential of what it could continue to grow into.
So before we get into, because I really want to talk about some things with Urban Skin RX, but I think that there's something that I really think you could speak to, and I kind of want to call it like the elephant in the room, but it's not really an elephant to me, but I feel like to other people. I know you talked, you talked about this, in a lot of your other interviews, and I think it's so interesting, and I would just love to hear, how do you manage when you have outsiders saying, "Oh, but you're not a person of color. Why are you even interested in this business?" Or people who are really doubting your real passion about this. Like, how do you manage that as a business owner and as a person? Because I think it's so interesting.
Well, it's been a long journey for me. It's, I've matured in a lot of ways. So I definitely had more of a mouth on me before. So if somebody came at me disrespectfully, I would thank God social media wasn't as big 10 years ago, because, I would probably get more angry. And now I'm just more about educating people, because I think it's so unjustified and ludicrous, because there's so many areas that people work in that they aren't the face, or they don't embody that form of work, like whether or not it's a oncologist who, helps people with cancer but has never had cancer, or, a hairdresser who specializes in weave but wears natural hair. It's just, to me, I think just in the climate of social media and just where our world is at, obviously cancer isn't a huge, debate, and it doesn't have a lot of historical negativity between two different sides. And so, of course, I'm not over here, how can I say this, being don't understand why I'm dealing with these questions, but at the same time, they're not justified from a educational standpoint. I saw something that wasn't right, and I wanted to lend my expertise and passion towards fixing something that was just insane. The world is only getting more diverse. There's so many races that have more melanin than others, family members of mine, friends. And I'm not going to listen to ignorant people that say just because I'm pale like I am, that I can't play out my passion towards helping something that is just so unjustified. So that's where I stand with it. And it's been moments of, where I feel down, and I've read horrible DMs about myself that, I'm trying to exploit Black women, or that I'm a culture vulture. But like I said, I know my heart, and the people close to me know my heart, and 99% of my clients know my heart. Now when people say really mean things on Instagram, I don't even have to say anything anymore, because my clients are the ones man, shut up.
Yep.
You sound crazy. This woman is amazing. So, that's where I stand with it.
What would you say to other people who are finding themselves in situations where people are questioning their, I guess, what is it they're questioning? They're questioning their position in the niche, or they're questioning their place. What kind of message would you give to that person who's also going through something like this?
I mean, I just think the hardest things in life are what reaps the biggest rewards. And when you go against the grain for something that you're authentically passionate about, that's when you change the world. I mean, I don't think what Martin Luther King did was easy. I don't think what Rosa Parks did was easy. And that's what I just tell myself, and that's what I tell somebody else. If you want to be a trailblazer and change the world, then be prepared. It's not going to be easy.
And you never know who's looking at you, and you never know who's being inspired by what you're doing. And that's what I think is so important.
Totally. I mean, what do you think? I mean, how do you feel about my brand and me not being an African-American woman and having such a large African-American clientele?
You know what's interesting? I think because nowadays I never try to assume that I know what anyone is. And so until I started doing the research to get ready for this interview, I assumed that you were maybe because I know your daughter looks a little looks mixed race. I couldn't tell. I genuinely didn't know what you were, but I didn't really care about that. That wasn't really like my number one thing. To me, it was like, wow, she really knows what she's doing. Rachel seems to be an expert at what she's doing. And because I've seen you in person and I've seen you on social media really interacting and knowing your product, I knew that you were genuine about it. So for me, I personally don't feel, I'm trying to think, I don't feel any way because I know that you are actually genuine, but I do feel like there are some business owners who are exploiting brands, or I don't want to generalize. Okay, I'm going to be very general here. Let's say in the hair care industry, right? There are a type of brands or a type of, let's say like people who may have hair wig lines, right? Who use Black people's faces, but aren't really part of the culture and don't really know their customers. Do you get where I'm going here? I'm trying not to be too, No. And I feel like that's the difference. Like if you really want to help a population, if you really want to create a product, you have to make sure that you're understanding your customers and that you're there and you're really, really passionate about it. And I know you're passionate about it. So that's what I love about your story. And I love that you're an ally and inspiring an industry that, hey, you need to pay attention because these are people who can really use the services who were previously not included in anything that has to do with lasers or just medical spa services. I went to a beauty event in the city a few months ago, and they had this, how they have these devices that are hair removals, but they're portable hair remover lasers or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
They tried to use it on me and they're like, oh, we're sorry. It doesn't fit to your, it's not for your skin type. And I felt so bad in that moment, Rachel. I felt so embarrassed because we were around a whole group of press people and they couldn't use it on, they couldn't sample it on me. And I felt so bad.
That's terrible. I mean, my whole thing is look, if you open a med spa in Montana or Idaho, why are you going to spend $100,000 on a YAG laser when the population of darker skin is practically non-existent? Mm-hmm. But in a place like New York, Charlotte, North Carolina, you don't have any business not being inclusive. Well, I appreciate you being a supporter and seeing my true genuineness. And that's why, my PR team has been amazing for me. I'm a single mom and I have my daughter 99.9% of the time. I have no family in Charlotte. I do have some amazing friends, but owning two companies, because I still have the med spa, which is 30 plus employees. We see about 150 patients a day. Then I have the skincare line, which is now almost 20 employees. Then I have this 7-year-old daughter who is just my everything, and traveling constantly for speaking engagements and expos was not something that I used to do very often. I declined a lot of opportunities because I just didn't want her suffering. And then as the company got bigger and we felt that there was some backlash about, even though I'd always dealt with the backlash, obviously it was getting bigger as our social media channel was growing and we were now in retail, and it was just more interviews were happening and this topic kept being brought up. And I did notice that anytime people got to know me, I don't want to brag, but they loved me. They'd be I'm not for everybody, but you can tell I'm authentic. I say what's on my mind. I'm not calculated about every word, and you hear my education for darker skin, and just the genuineness. And so we decided the best way to have people get to know you is to start taking these opportunities. And so this last year, I'm always on the road, and it's hard. Cause when I go home, I'm literally every time I'm gone, I'm trying to call her teacher to make sure the next day I can volunteer in the class, which means I then have to give up, working out that day or mm-hmm. being in the office mm-hmm. as much. I'm torn in so many ways to make sure that while I'm on the road, I'm still giving her exactly what she needs. this week while I'm gone, rather than having her nanny watch her because I'm gone like 7 days, I asked 3 of my best girlfriends to do it, which was a lot of organization, because even though she loves her nanny, I felt like her aunties are fun. So then I had to get on the phone with 3 friends and be like, can you guys each do a night, because that will make her more excited, about having her aunties there. So it's just like, I'm always having to think of how can Rosie not be, affected by me trying to be out in the public. But at the same time, I do feel like it's working. I do feel like being out there and people getting to know me is helping the fact that there was some concerns over my race.
Okay, Urban Skin Solutions. You now have Urban Skin RX. What has been like the biggest lessons you've learned about transitioning from owning a medical spa to having a product line that you think entrepreneurs really, really need to think about as they make this transition?
I mean, having a service-based business it's something I would never do again. I mean, I love my clients, my employees, but having ablative, high liability services to a skin tone that can burn so much easier. So the amount of education and training to my employees is so much more extensive. I feel like I picked the hardest service business that there was. I would say to anybody, if you can sell a product rather than a service, girl, you better sell the product. That's something that I've learned between looking at the 2 businesses. But at the same time, already having a clientele with demand allowed me to fund and grow my product business. My business never got any funding because I was able to start making products. Like, I would make like 24 at a time, then 100 at a time, then 200, then 1,000. So I never was really cash strapped. I really didn't become cash strapped as a business until we went into retail, which is why a lot of businesses that you think like, are so successful and so big end up needing to get funding when you think that they would have needed to get funding way long ago. It's because you get these opportunities with these huge retailers and you need to make all these products and you owe the labs the money practically up front. And then you don't deliver to the retailer for 6 months. They have like sometimes 90 days till they have to pay you. So you're out of all this cash for like 9 months, sometimes a year at a time. And that's if you sell successfully. If you don't sell successfully, then you're really screwed. So, and I know that's getting off on a tangent about investment and money, but it's, it's been a beautiful, but very, a journey of a lot of mistakes, also just having a passion and which needed so many staff members to meet the demand of my growing business when I don't think I've been a great manager. I would say I'm a lot better now than I was, but that was not my strong point. And boy, I think my business would be further today if I had been a better manager.
And I was going to ask you about that, but I think it's a good lesson that at least you're realizing where you need the help and then investing in the right resources in order to get you there. But as we wind down, Rachel, I want to know, like, what's driving you now? I feel like Urban Skin RX I'm seeing it everywhere. You have great brand ambassadors, Eva, what's driving you and where do you want to go?
Oh gosh, it's like, I'm thinking so huge now. Don't get me wrong. I'm all about popping a bottle of champagne. We probably do it about once a week at work. I love to celebrate the triumphs and the successes of a company, whether or not it's this podcast or an Essence hit or a retail, door that we get into. But it's kind of like the second it happens and the second the bottle of champagne is drunk, I just develop I picture a bigger goal in my mind. And, I really want to take the brand international. We do ship direct to customers internationally, but I want to get into retailers internationally. Another thing is it's kind of a known thing that a mass and a prestige retailer won't take the same brand. So like what's in Sephora, you're not going to find in Target, because Target is mass and Sephora is prestige. And so I'm in the middle of breaking my brand into two different brands. There's going to be Pro Strength by Urban Skinner X and then just Urban Skinner X. And I want to not only prove to people that shelf space is warranted for clinical skincare for multicultural skin, but we can be successful in prestige and mass, because I think people thought, okay, well, maybe that audience will support it in a mass area. And I'm like, no, they're going to support it in a prestige area as well. So I just like, again, that's that part of me that just wants to prove everybody wrong, because I know what my customers and friends of all skin tones are willing to spend and what they do for the beauty industry and billions. And so, I recognize that, Target has been very successful in the multicultural industry because they do so much research on localization and putting your products where the demographic is that needs those. And so I want to help CVS and Ulta and, all these different retailers. They're so interested in multicultural, but I want to let them know that if you want to be like Target, you got to put the research in and be able to help them with that and really show the world what we can do. So that's where I'm at.
And, our skin is the biggest organ on our bodies, and we need to take care of it, right? And I think that's a great message, that take care of your skin because you're going to need it as long as you're alive. Last question, Rachel, is, I like to ask our guests to give us their 3 keys to success. So if you had to say 3 things that you would suggest any dream driver have in their toolkit before they hit the road, what would that be?
Be self-aware, like don't be defensive. Don't be in denial. Every shitty situation that you end up in, even if you feel like you're the victim, try to come out of it thinking about how you played a role so that you don't make the same mistake, whether or not if it was just ignoring your gut instincts, just anything. Next is lead by example. If you want, whether or not it's employees, clients, anybody to believe in your dream and work as hard as you have to show them that you're willing to put it all on the line. If that means scrubbing the floor when you're the CEO, then you show them that. Next is, being problem solution oriented. I think one of the things that have gotten me where I am today is when there's a problem, I will just literally obsess over a solution, even if it involves being up all night long. And I don't really know how to give, maybe that's something I was born with, but like I'm very into immediately trying to find some answer to get me out of that problem. Because when you're an entrepreneur, that's all it's going to be is just problem after problem after problem and knockdown after knockdown. So if you are not prepared to just constantly critically think, and be humbled, like to this day, I will beg somebody for a favor. I will kiss ass. I will do whatever is necessary for my company to not fail.
And I think that's the fuel that helps keep you going, right?
Well, so what did you think of your first interview back?
This was amazing. I feel like I was a little like shaky in the beginning, but you know what I felt like? I love this. When you do something, you step away for a bit and you come back and you're like, wait, I really missed this. This was amazing. Thank you so much, Rachel.
All right. Well, you have a great day, and I look forward to talking to you again.
All right. So that was a wrap for episode 205 with Rachel. I hope you enjoyed hearing her dream driving journey as well as her keys to success. Did you love this episode? Did you feel like you took something away from it? Do you feel like somebody that you know would really, really appreciate hearing this as well? If your answers to any of that is yes, please, please, please share this episode. I love it when you guys screenshot and share to Instagram stories, especially share to your Instagram page, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever you are online. Make sure that this week you just send this episode to one more person. Even if you're not sending this episode, if you're just sharing the overall podcast with somebody, I would surely, surely appreciate it. As always, make sure you're following us across the board on social media. We are Dreams in Drive on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and you can use the hashtag Dreams in Drive as well. Wherever you're listening, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Castbox, SoundCloud, wherever, please make sure that you are subscribed so that every week you get a notification every time we have a new episode. And if you'd love to support Dreams and Drive, there are several ways that you can. Just go to dreamsanddrive.com/support. I'm so appreciative of people who are in our Patreon community, especially. Thank you once again to Dr. Barry. So if you want to hear your name or your mission shouted out on the next episode, just go to dreamsanddrive.com/donate, and I will definitely be choosing somebody to highlight next week. And you know what? This is your first time listening and you want to go back and listen to episode 204 with Pinky Cole and learn about how you can maximize your greatness. I'm telling you, that episode was thebomb.com. So many people shared it. So many of you enjoyed it. I feel like she'd be like the perfect live guest for a live show. What do you think? As always, keep dreaming, keep driving, and we'll chat again in episode 206. Bye, guys.